Chapter 2723, 2723 Past, Present. Chapter 2723, 2723 Past, Present. 2723 Past, Present. It's your grandpa dog. The large black dog immediately darted out, barking. Kill yourself quickly so that the karmic life heavenly venerable can appear. Otherwise, grandpa dog will destroy you. Heavenborn crossed his hands behind his back. Even when I just came to being, I had no fear of you, what more now? Where is Ling Han? Come out. He knew that the voice just now had not come from the large black dog. Ling Han smiled slightly, and appeared on the mountain. At present, Heavenborn was massive. Even if he was standing in the canyon, he was not much lower than him. He looked at Ling Han coldly. In the past, the fact that I did not kill you was indeed my greatest miscalculation. Ling Han shook his head. A lot of people have said these words to me before, but their greatest miscalculation should have been meeting me in the first place. What arrogant word! Heavenborn exclaimed. This is confidence. Ling Han was still calm. In the past, even when he had worked together with Ji Wuming, Hua Furong, and the others, they had still been no match for Hua Furong, but now he had already caught up to Heavenborn in terms of cultivation level, and did not have any disadvantage any longer. Not being able to devour your bloodline in the past is a great regret of mine. I did not expect that you would deliver yourself into my hands. Very good. Heavenborn nodded, filled with confidence. Are you done with the nonsense? Give us back the karmic life, heavenly venerable. The large black dog was the first to make his move. Heavenborn humphed, delivering a palm strike in response. Peng. The two great ninth heaven elites exchanged blows once, suddenly causing a great reverberation. However, though the man and dog had both been sent several hundred kilometers backwards, each of them looked like nothing had happened. Yi, your physique. Heavenborn was surprised, and with a thought, he exclaimed, you have cultivated the indestructible divine metal physique. He possessed a sliver of the divine sense of the karmic life heavenly venerable, so he naturally knew of the existence of the indestructible heaven scroll. The large black dog was proud. It is not just a bastard like you that can possess a divine metal-like physique. Heavenborn frowned slightly, but his frown immediately smoothened out. Even so, you will only be refined by me. He moved again, grabbing out at the large black dog. However, the large black dog had long since attained peak stage 9th heaven celestial king tier, and had also learned various theories with Worley, so he was really just a step away from setting foot in the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. His battle prowess was extraordinary, especially when his physique had reached the level of divine metal, which naturally made him even more fearless. Similarly, Heavenborn had always possessed divine metal level defense. Though the two of them were fighting extremely intensely, it was a stalemate, with neither being able to wound the other. It was only excitement for show. Battle, battle, battle. They battled till the world became dark, but there was still no conclusion. Wang. However, Heavenborn's stomach was trembling wildly. There was a pseudo-heavenly venerate imprisoned there. It had great strength, and was capable of dealing impressive damage even to divine metal. It was fine if this was under normal conditions, as Heavenborn's own power would be enough to suppress it, but now he had to exchange blows with a peak stage 9th heaven elite. With enemy on the inside, and an enemy on the outside, this made it slightly unbearable for him. His stomach split open quite a few times, ripped open by a claw. That giant snow monster very nearly managed to escape, and Heavenborn forcefully suppressed it. However, he was beginning to tire slightly. Heavenborn looked towards Ling Han. This man had not made his move yet. If he combined forces with the large black dog, there was absolutely no way Heavenborn could digest the thing in his stomach. That would need a very peaceful environment. Pu. Heavenborn thus decided to just spread out his body, and turned once more into a metallic sheet, vomiting the object in his stomach. The giant snow monster instantly escaped, shrieking loudly. Heavenborn transformed his body, and returned to his usual size. This could cut down on the surface area on his body that would be exposed to attacks. Otherwise, it would be very disadvantageous in battle. Peng. The giant snow monster stomped down on Heavenborn. However, its foot was too big, so even the large black dog was within the range of this attack. "You ugly giant, why are you stomping down on me as well?" The large black dog dodged hurriedly. Though his physique was akin to divine metal, and he would definitely survive this stomp, he would still be stomped flat. That was still very painful. The giant snow monster ignored him completely, and just continued stomping, treating Heavenborn and the large black dog the same. They belonged to two different worlds in the first place. With the inclusion of the giant snow monster, this battle became even more complicated. This was a battle royal of 3 different sides, and was extremely lively. Ling Han unleashed a battle cry, and charged towards that giant snow monster. Peng, peng, peng. He threw a series of punches, every blow incredibly domineering. This giant snow monster's power was impressive, but its defense was far from reaching the level of the divine metal. Under Ling Han's mad barrage of attacks, one of its legs was soon forcefully blasted apart. Peng! Its figure suddenly swayed as it collapsed. Ling Han gave it another beating. Pa! The giant snow monster's head was also destroyed, and it was now completely dead. Clean and quick. Heavenborn's expression instantly changed drastically. This battle prowess was too powerful, wasn't it? This completely exceeded his expectations. They were both ninth heaven celestial kings, and Heavenborn was a manifestation of the willpower of the heaven and earth at that, but he was actually inferior to Ling Han? "I am feeling more and more regretful," Heavenborn said. "At the time, even if you had been spirited away by the chaotic stream of spatial energy, I should have continued to pursue and kill you completely." At the time, he had also been affected by the chaotic stream of spatial energy, but if he had been willing to sustain some injury and expend a little life force, he would still have been able to catch up to Ling Han. However, Heavenborn had thought that it would not have been worth it at the time, and that was why he had allowed the chaotic stream of spatial energy to spirit Ling Han away. As Heavenborn thought about it, there should have been no way for Ling Han to survive. He had not expected that not only had the latter not died, he was presently strong enough to surpass him. Ling Han smiled slightly. "Now, both of us are at the ninth heaven. Come then, let us have a fair fight, and see who is stronger between the two of us." Heavenborn sneered. "I admit that you are very freakish, but you will never be able to compare with heaven and earth." He suddenly opened his mouth, which became incredibly colossal, as he tried to swallow Ling Han. Ling Han had seen this move before. The pseudo-heavenly venerable tier giant snow monster was thus swallowed whole, and it was indeed very powerful. In this instant, he did not want to take this attack head-on, so he dodged. "Oh, so what if you are a manifestation of the realm?" "You can guess." Heavenborn did not answer, and merely continued to bite at Ling Han. Thoughts were turning over in Ling Han's head, and he said seriously, "Realms can devour one another to improve their own respective levels. Going by that account, it is possible that you, too, possess this kind of ability." Heavenborn couldn't help but be rendered speechless. He had not thought that Ling Han would really hit the nail on the head. "You had just eaten a pseudo-heavenly venerate just now, and I assume that you had wanted to digest it, but because of our interference, you had no choice but to stop the process." Ling Han continued his deduction following this line of thought. "Yi, could it be that there would be a day that you could become a second Hysteria?" This was not an idea that belonged only to Heavenborn. It was the same for He Feng. He had also obtained one of Hysteria's tentacles, and had spent several epochs to study it so that he could be assimilated with Hysteria, and also gain the devouring ability. Thus, it was very easy for Ling Han to come up with this deduction. However, Heavenborn did not know this. His eyes were wide and mouth gaping. In his eyes, this was a great secret that only he knew. He had not thought that Ling Han would have guessed it so easily, and at this moment, he did not know how to react at all. This was just like how someone managed to dig out a precious gem with great difficulty, and was about to show off his feat to his companion, but in the end discovered that the path in his companion's home was completely laid out with these gems. That sudden sense of loss and dejection was really over the moon. Heavenborn took a deep breath, and only then did he manage to suppress his emotions. He shouted, "So what if you know that? Once I eat you, you will only become my nutrition. Is that right?" Ling Han chuckled, and drew the divine demon sword. "You can try." Chapter 2724, 2724 Beating to Heart's Content. Chapter 2724, 2724 Beating to Heart's Content. 2724 Beating to Heart's Content. Heaven-born couldn't help but pause. He was the manifestation of the willpower of heaven and earth, so his senses far surpassed his cultivation level. With a single glance, he could tell what was up with the divine demon sword. This was a heavenly venerate tool. His physique was indeed tough, and even a pseudo-heavenly venerate's blow would only leave behind a groove on his skin. However, if he was struck by a heavenly venerate tool, he definitely would be sliced open. Heaven-born couldn't help but thank his luck secretly. If he really had swallowed Ling Han into his stomach just now, he would probably have been ripped open and dissected by now. His recovery ability was indeed powerful, but the destructive power of a heavenly venerate tool was astonishing. It was unknown how much time he would need to heal his injuries. Your luck is also overwhelmingly good. Heavenly venerate growled through gritted teeth. Even if he was the manifestation of the heaven and earth, he had not been able to obtain a piece of devouring metal himself. Though the Black Tower was also a heavenly venerate tool, it had not been forged by his own hands. Furthermore, it was still seriously damaged at present. It could not unleash the battle prowess that it should have at all. Hence, you had best accept your death obediently. Ling Han charged over. Do you think I fear you? Heavenborn took out the Black Tower. Wang. It immediately enlarged in his hand, turning into a staff-like form, which he wielded as he charged towards Ling Han. Boom. Two heavenly venerate tools clashed, instantly bursting with a light so dazzling that even the heaven and earth paled in comparison. With a strong flick of Ling Han's sword, Peng, Heavenborn was sent flying. The divine demon sword had only advanced to the heavenly venerable tier in terms of material, but the martial intent of a heavenly venerate had not been branded on it yet. Thus, it was extremely sharp and incredibly sturdy, but aside from these 2 points, it actually could only still be considered a celestial tool. As for the Black Tower, it was indeed a genuine heavenly venerate tool, but it was severely damaged at the moment, and was not able to awaken fully at all. This heavenly venerate tool that was not awakened was actually just considerably sharper than a celestial tool, and considerably sturdier. In terms of battle prowess, it was actually inferior. Hence, in the clash between the divine demon sword and the Black Tower, it was actually 2 pieces of devouring metal crashing into each other. Naturally, neither would be able to get the upper hand. The factor that decided the outcome of this clash would still be Ling Han's and Heavenborn's own battle prowess. Of course, it was certain that Ling Han was definitely stronger. Peng. Ling Han shot off in pursuit, and followed up with another punch, which landed on Heavenborn's nose. Even if Heavenborn's physique was tough, so what? This punch still broke his nose, and caused him to shed golden blood. Ling Han used this opening, and struck out with the sword, stabbing at Heavenborn's heart. Ding! Heavenborn laid out the Black Tower horizontally so that it acted as a shield in front of his chest. This strike was blocked, but as the massive power surged past, Heavenborn was again sent flying. He was involuntarily shocked. His power was much greater than the ordinary Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings because he had also previously been able to draw on the power of heaven and earth to temper himself. But this could only be done in the celestial realm. After he had come to the flaming frost realm, he, a manifestation of the heaven and earth, had naturally fallen out of favor. That was the case even for him, so how was it that Ling Han could be even more powerful than that? Heavenborn was the manifestation of the dimension of the celestial realm. Why was it that it was he that would be inferior to this bug that had been born in this dimension? Peng. Heavenborn suffered another punch, and stumbled back from the impact. His face was covered with golden blood, and looked extremely tragic. This was Ling Han's power being too strong, surpassing Heavenborn's recovery ability. However, this could only cause him some slight injury. The body of divine metal was not so easy to destroy. Ling Han, you can do nothing to me. Heavenborn roared. Even if you are slightly superior to me, so what? I am the manifestation of the dimension, and possess a boundless room for evolution. My path of cultivation only requires me to devour elites. There is no need for comprehension at all. I will very soon surpass you, and at that time, I will crush you into dust. Ling Han scoffed. If you really had been so amazing, how could I have possibly caught up to you in cultivation level and suppressed you in battle prowess? Heavenborn was instantly rendered speechless. In the past, his cultivation level and battle prowess had both overwhelmed Ling Han, yet he no longer had the slightest bit of advantage now. Just think back to the past, how high-spirited he had been, snatching the heavenly venerate tool from Ling Han's hands, and beating down on him so badly that the latter could only flee in a panic. If it were not for the uniqueness of that spatial passageway, Ling Han would have long since died hundreds of millions of years ago. Damn it, damn it. Heavenborn shouted furiously in his mind, but time could not be reversed. To say nothing of the fact that he was only a manifestation of heaven and earth, even if he was the heaven and earth itself, this was something that he could not do. Ling Han used the 9 transformations divine scroll, and his battle prowess suddenly soared countless times over. Chasing after Heavenborn, he blasted him madly. Peng, 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 after several dozen punches, Heavenborn's whole chest had caved in. It was as thin as paper and almost close to being shattered. The large black dog could not help but remind, "Little Han, take it easy. This body still has to be used by the heavenly venerate." Heavenborn naturally heard these words, and his face instantly scrunched up with anger. "You guys actually want to use my body? Don't even think about it." Heavenborn fought back strongly, using the black tower like a staff. Boom! The heavenly venerate tool unleashed its might. Even if it only possessed the might of the devouring metal itself, that was still terrifying enough as it broke through the layers of space. But faced with Ling Han, this move was not effective. It couldn't be helped, for Ling Han possessed the divine demon sword. Boom! The two of them exchanged blows intensely. Ling Han, who possessed battle prowess on the level of late-stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, completely suppressed Heavenborn, beating him so hard that the latter was beginning to doubt himself. Why was he, a manifestation of heaven and earth, actually no match for Ling Han? Heavenborn was filled with hatred. If he had known this, he would not have come to the flaming frost realm at all. If this was the celestial realm, he could influence the heaven and earth to a limited extent. The various natural treasures would just appear on their own in front of him, helping his cultivation level to soar. However, the overall level of the celestial realm was too low, and it would target even just a first-tier heavenly venerate. Even he could not be exempted from this, because once he was separated from the heaven and earth, he was actually an independent individual. It was precisely because of such considerations that Heavenborn had come to the flaming frost realm so he could seek a wider space for his own growth. He had not thought that he would encounter a freak like Ling Han here. He gritted his teeth, and decided to retreat. If they continued fighting like this, he really would be done for. "You can't escape," Ling Han declared coldly. He had already targeted Heavenborn for so long, so how could he miss this chance? Peng, peng, peng. Ling Han shot out like an arrow in pursuit, and he forced Heavenborn backwards once more with a series of more than a dozen punches. "If you kill me, you will not be able to escape punishment, either," Heavenborn roared harshly. At the very least, he was wearing the ring which had a recording ability. If he died by Ling Han's hand, those at the barrier would definitely know about it. This crime was much greater than killing fellow disciples at the martial academy. It was a definite death sentence. Even if you were the son of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, it would be useless. Ling Han shook his head, and asked smilingly, "Who said I would be killing you?" Heavenborn was slightly taken aback. Thinking back to the large black dog's previous words, he naturally came to a realization. "The two of you want to bring the karmic life heavenly venerable back to life, and have him replace me in this body that I am presently occupying? Ha ha ha, that is delusional. If I die, I will definitely eradicate his lingering soul before my death." Ling Han humphed. "Will you be able to?" He attacked aggressively, every strike of his sword harsh and powerful, no longer keeping anything back. Heavenborn instantly felt the pressure on him increase greatly. Once Ling Han unleashed his might, he would not be able to hold up at all. After all, the gap in strength between the two of them was too wide. This was a one-sided oppression, a one-sided torment. Peng, peng, peng. Heavenborn was beaten tragically. When they had had a fair battle in the 9 Deaths formation, Heavenborn had already been no match for Ling Han, and now the gap between the two of them was even wider than before. After around 100 moves, Ling Han kicked Heavenborn over, and leveled the divine demon sword at the latter's neck. If it were not for the fact that he could not truly kill this guy, what need would there have been for Ling Han to use so many moves? Of course, beating Heavenborn to his heart's content was also another reason. Chapter 27-25, 27-25 Resurrection of Yuan Sheng. Chapter 27-25, 27-25 Resurrection of Yuan Sheng. 27-25 Resurrection of Yuan Sheng. Kill, stab me with the sword if you can. Heavenborn laughed loudly. Don't forget, Yuan Sheng and I share this body. If I die, it means he will be dead too. The large black dog jumped over and paced around in circles anxiously. Little Han, what should we do now? Ling Han smiled lightly. If we truly can't save karmic life Heavenly Venerable, then we'll just have to erase this person. Heavenborn was a personification of the realm, so his way of thinking would definitely be different from normal people's. If he was allowed to continue getting stronger, he definitely wouldn't fight against Hysteria. Rather, he would want to be the second Hysteria, or perhaps he might want to eliminate Hysteria and dominate the Genesis world. Killing another person was actually quite simple. One just needed to remove your own and the other party's rings before the actual deed. Hearing the indifference in Ling Han's voice, Heavenborn couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. Ling Han really wanted to kill him, it was no empty threat. What to do now? He didn't want to die. Don't you all want to save Yuan Sheng? He shouted. He was clutching at straws to save himself. The large black dog was also pacing up and down. In spite of the fact that Heavenborn was now captured, the question of how to save karmic life Heavenly Venerable had become a big problem. Ling Han smiled, and with a hook of his foot, the black tower fell into his hands. He couldn't help feeling rueful. After more than 100 million years, the black tower finally returned to him. Okay, I'll let you have this Heavenly Venerate tool as a gift. Heavenborn said. I can erase the martial intent on it, and it shall no longer have any relationship to me. How about it? A Heavenly Venerate tool in exchange for my Lifu Ri gaining a huge profit from this trade. He was also capable of being flexible. In his opinion, as long as he was being given time to grow stronger, his future achievements would not be lower than those of Hysteria. All the elites in the world would just become nutrition for him. A smile spread across Ling Han's face. All of a sudden, he picked up the black tower and smashed it against Heavenborn, directly targeting the head. With a clang, Heavenborn was dazed from the impact. What kind of power did Ling Han possess? Had he used all his strength in this strike, with the destructive power of the Heavenly Venerate tool, Heavenborn's head would have already become pulp. However, Ling Han didn't intend to kill Heavenborn, so he controlled his power in this strike, only causing Heavenborn damage. It was like hitting an ordinary person with a wooden stick. If you exerted too much force, you could kill them, but if you controlled the force, you would knock people unconscious or cause dizziness or physical injury. The degree of force which Ling Han used was the second type. He knocked Heavenborn dizzy and caused him injury. Under such a blow, Heavenborn couldn't control himself at all, so how could he destroy the soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable? Moreover, the Black Tower was personally forged by karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Such a blow would cause injury to Heavenborn, but it would have absolutely no effect on the soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Slowly obliterating the soul of Heavenborn in this way, all that remained could only be the lingering soul of karmic life Heavenly Venerable. Even if it was just a tiny little bit, and would be extremely weak when resurrected, he would eventually recover as long as there was enough time. The large black dog obviously thought of the same thing as well, and couldn't help clapping with his paws. Ingenious, ingenious. It was impossible to implement such a tactic before, as Ling Han's strength had fallen short when compared to that of Heavenborn, but now that he had surpassed him in battle prowess, this method became feasible and effective. Crack, crack, crack. One blow after another. Although Heavenborn knew this wasn't right, how could he control his body? It was like someone was beating drums and gongs right next to the ear of an ordinary person, causing them to feel dizzy, lightheaded, and unable to think at all. Ah! Heavenborn could only utter such an angry roar, but it immediately came to an abrupt stop. Clang, only such melodious sound of the blows continued on endlessly. So what if he had the physique of divine metal? He could only tremble under the impact of being struck by the heavenly venerate tool. However, Heavenborn indeed was able to hold on for quite some time. 10 days, 1 month, and half a year had passed, yet he was still struggling and didn't crumble. Ling Han naturally did not lack patience. To say nothing of half a year, he could spend 1,000 or even 10 million years like this. He owed his life twice to karmic life heavenly venerable, so how could he not even have such patience? 3 years, 5 years. 10 years later, Heavenborn really couldn't endure it any longer. Under the continuous impact of the strikes with the Black Tower, his body was already covered with cracks, and he bled profusely with golden blood. This was due to Ling Han already holding back his strength, otherwise just being hit once with the Black Tower might have already caused Heavenborn's body to fall apart. Heavenborn cursed as his body glowed with black light. He wanted to go all out and fight to the death. It was not for the sake of taking Ling Han down together with him, but to completely erase the lingering soul of the karmic life heavenly venerable. Still trying to do evil? Ling Han smiled. Clang, he struck hard with the Black Tower again. Heavenborn's body trembled violently, and then his limbs drooped, as if he was dead. Crack, crack, crack. Ling Han hit a few more times, but Heavenborn did not have any reaction, only that his body would tremble for a moment after he had struck him. Have you beaten him to death? The large black dog came up to him. Ling Han nodded. The soul of Heavenborn should have died, but whether karmic life heavenly venerable can come back to life will depend on his good fortune. It would mainly depend on the strength of the lingering soul. If it was too weak, then it would just be like a worn candle in the wind, and would soon be extinguished. This would require karmic life heavenly venerable himself to have a strong will to survive. He had long since died, after all. Logically, it was impossible for him to come back to life. Oh, heavenly venerate, you are an absolutely strong man. Back then, you fought against 11 heavenly venerates of the foreign realm all by yourself. You can definitely overcome this little difficulty, the large black dog murmured, cheering for the karmic life heavenly venerable. Oh, heavenly venerate, you are an extraordinary genius through the ages. Presently, hysteria is on a rampage. We are still waiting for you to resolve the matter. You must come back alive. Now all that Ling Han and the large black dog could do was wait. 10 years, 100 years, and 1,000 years had passed. The only thing that made them feel relieved was that Heavenborn's body was slowly recovering. The lacerations that were originally caused by being hit with Black Tower were slowly healing. This might be a wishful desire, but it might also be that Heavenborn's physique was indeed so tough, having such an ability even after death. 3,000 years later, Heavenborn's fingers suddenly twitched slightly. The large black dog instantly felt surprised and happy, but also extremely worried. This might be karmic life heavenly venerable coming back to life, but it was also possible that Heavenborn hadn't died at all, and then they would have rejoiced too soon. Ling Han also looked over. All these years, he hadn't wasted time, either, and had been cultivating in order to reach the peak of the 9th heaven as soon as possible. He had also made significant progress in body art. Being boosted by heavenly venerable tear seals, his cultivation speed was extremely fast. Heavenborn's eyelids moved slightly, and then his eyes opened. It was a pair of clear eyes, with dominance that came from looking down on the rest of the world and absolute self-confidence, but also filled with compassion for mankind. It definitely wasn't Heavenborn. It was obviously the same face and body, but because of the change in his gaze, it made people feel as if he was a completely different person. Heavenly venerate, the large black dog shouted, his voice trembling. The greater the expectation, the more he was afraid of failure. It's me. Heavenborn nodded. At this moment, he should no longer be Heavenborn, but rather the karmic life heavenly venerable. Ling Han laughed heartily. Congratulations, Master. He offered up the Black Tower with both hands. This precious tool accompanied him for many years, from when he was weak to when he became strong, until it left him when he became a celestial king. Now that he was a 9th heaven celestial king, and the divine demon sword also became a heavenly venerate tool. He had already carved out a path of his own. Chapter 27-26, 27-26 7 Deaths 7 Explosions Pill. Chapter 27-26, 27-26 7 Deaths 7 Explosions Pill. 27-26 7 Deaths 7 Explosions Pill. The karmic life Heavenly Venerable felt very rueful. In the past, he had chosen to fuse with Heavenly Tao, sealing off the two-realm passageway. He had never anticipated that there would come a day when he could be revived. He accepted the Black Tower, and touched it lightly. He had many, many words, but ultimately, all this culminated into a sigh. "Thank you for your efforts." He nodded at Ling Han and the large black dog. "Master, let's return," Ling Han said. They had already been outside for quite a few millennia, and in this period, Hysteria's troops had also charged a few dozen times. Thankfully, they had hidden themselves inside the celestial guest residence, and the target of Hysteria's troops was the barrier. On their way there, they would not carefully survey their surroundings, so no fight took place. Though Ling Han had a lot of confidence in the Empress and the Rain Emperor, he still wanted to return quickly. "All right." The karmic life Heavenly Venerable nodded. The 2 men and 1 dog returned to the barrier. All this while, the karmic life Heavenly Venerable was trying to adapt to this new body. "Heavenly Venerate, will this affect your progress in future?" the large black dog asked. Though Heavenborn's body was as tough as divine metal, and who knew how many people there were that yearned desperately for such a body, it did not mean that the stronger the body, the more suitable it would be for cultivation. Instead, the first consideration would be if the body had any affinity with the soul inside. If there was no affinity, then even if he had Shin Chihu's body, he would not be able to become a Heavenly Venerate. The karmic life Heavenly Venerable nodded. "This body was nurtured by the heaven and earth, so it is completely suited to my soul. Moreover, I have also probed into quite a number of secrets of the heaven and earth through it. In fact, I can skip over that unique power of this dimension, and advance to become a first-tier Heavenly Venerate with one of the fundamental powers." It was like Ling Han then. It could not be helped. Being born and nurtured from the heaven and earth meant that it really could be so amazing. When Heavenborn had been in the world's paramount martial academy, he had already been extremely powerful. Now that it was the soul of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, he would only be even stronger than that. The large black dog howled. Now, he had 2 powerful backers, so it would only be him bullying others, and never the other way round. They returned to the barrier. Strictly speaking, Heavenborn had not died at all. The soul of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had been residing all this while in this body. Hence, there naturally was no change to his identity at all. They successfully passed through the city wall, and then Ling Han excused himself first, heading off to see the Empress. They had not seen each other for several thousand years, and the Empress had completely stabilized her cultivation level of the 9th heaven. Furthermore, she had progressed even further through fighting in the repeated invasions, and was presently advancing steadily towards the middle stage of the 9th heaven. When she saw Ling Han had returned, the Empress was naturally overjoyed as she kissed and embraced him. When their conversation came to how the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had come back to life, the Empress was also happy for Ling Han. Though she was very proud, the other party was her husband's master, after all. Furthermore, he had saved Ling Han's life twice, so she was very grateful to him. After the 2 of them were done reminiscing, Ling Han took the Empress to meet the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. As they walked on the streets, they saw the people around them pointing at him, and whispering among themselves. "Is there something on my face?" Ling Han asked the Empress with a grin. The Empress shook her head. "Though you were still high in the number 1 spot of the recent leaderboard in these few thousand years, there is no change to your battle merits at all. Thus, it is natural that countless people would start to doubt your strength. So that's how it is." Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. This really was the more popular one was, the more they would be gossiped about. He did not believe that there was no one that was not in the same situation as he was, but it was only he that would be faulted, and it was precisely because he held the top spot in the recent leaderboard which had drawn so much critique. However, Ling Han was not concerned at all. Esteem and prestige could only be obtained through genuine battle. What was the use of mere words? After meeting the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, life naturally returned to the usual pattern. Cultivation. Whether it was Ling Han, the Empress, or the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, the path of cultivation that was laid out before them was still long and far ahead. For the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, his path was not smooth sailing, either. Because this was the flaming frost realm, he had to sense that unique power of this heaven and earth again, and though he said that it was possible that he could grasp one of the fundamental powers in advance, he only meant that there might be some chance. Whether it would succeed or fail would have to be seen when the time came. All of them were working hard on cultivation, but several years later, the troops of Hysteria attacked again. This time, there were no small-scale probing battles. From the very beginning, it was a force that was able to topple mountains and overturn seas. They fought for a whole 17 days before they finally managed to block this wave of attack. The elites of the city began to counterattack, hunting down those wandering soldiers. Then, groundbreaking news came out, shocking everyone. After so many years, the barrier had also accumulated enough resources to concoct 3 7 Death 7 Explosions pills. 4 Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings or Pseudo-Heavenly Venerates. This was extraordinarily significant. That was because while the troops of Hysteria would bring massive destruction, it was only Pseudo-Heavenly Venerates and Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings that would be dispatched, after all. Even after death, they could be used for alchemy. After countless years of accumulation, there were enough raw ingredients, and there were finally results from alchemy. Because of the difference of heaven and earth, it was also very difficult to refine the troops of Hysteria, especially when these creatures also contained extremely chaotic traits. It was very easy for the cauldron to explode. Hence, usually, it would take trillions and trillions of years to successfully produce a single cauldron of alchemical pills. For cultivators, the 7 Death 7 Explosions pill had very great benefits. At the same time, its side effects were also strong because the chaotic traits would not be so easily erased. Ingesting this pill could very easily cause one to lose his mind. It was said that only as long as one survived 7 waves of killing intent and the danger of becoming extremely violent in character would he then be able to digest the benefits contained inside this alchemical pill. This was a good opportunity that would allow one to ascend the heavens in a single step. Though there was no way it could help one to break through the barrier to the Pseudo-Heavenly Venerable tier or Heavenly Venerable tier, it would greatly cut down on time spent on cultivation. But there were only 3 7 Death 7 Explosions pills, so whom should they be given to? If it was to be bestowed on a particular person, who would be satisfied with that? Furthermore, in terms of connections, there were a great many people here that were the descendants of 3rd tier, 4th tier, or even 5th tier and 6th tier Heavenly Venerates. None of them could be easily offended. Naturally, no one wanted to bear the blame for this, so they came up with a different way to resolve this issue. Battle. Power was what earned respect. This was the real iron rule that would never change in the world of cultivation. Elites possessed everything, and that was the case throughout the ages. Hence, the owners of these 3 7 Death 7 Explosions pills would also be decided with a tournament. However, if one wanted to join the competition, he had to be in the top 100 of the recent leaderboard. Additionally, there would also be another 28 special spots. After round of elimination, 3 winners would emerge in the end. The first round was to eliminate 99% of the people here. It was as difficult as ascending the heavens to make it into the recent leaderboard, what more when you had to squeeze your way into the top 100? All of them were elites among elites. Furthermore, while they could slowly grind their way into the general leaderboard with enough time, it could not be done for the recent leaderboard. The recent leaderboard would only include the battle merits achieved in the last 1 million years. Those who were ranked in the top 100 naturally had no need to worry. They only had to prepare for their upcoming battles. As for the others, they had their eyes set on the additional 28 spots, and all of them started moving. Not too long later, these spots had all found their owners. Ling Han was number 1 on the recent leaderboard. At least, there was nothing else he had to do for 1 million years, and he could still maintain his spot as the top in the recent leaderboard. But because there was not the slightest improvement in his battle merits, This garnered public critique from the masses. Everyone was fighting furiously, but he would be able to just laze his way into the qualification stage. Who would be convinced by this? There were also many people that were throwing up a ruckus, demanding that Ling Han should be disqualified. Their demands would naturally be disregarded, but this also showed that Ling Han was indeed not very popular. Ling Han couldn't help but ask himself why, but he could not come up with a reason. It all came down to one thing: anyone who would not be envied by others could only be mediocre. The Empress, the Rain Emperor, the large black dog, and the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had all missed this opportunity. Ling Han was filled with confidence. He would definitely be able to obtain a 7 deaths 7 explosions pill. However, the fact that they would not all be given as a reward to the overall champion couldn't help but make him feel that it was unfortunate. Chapter 2727, 2727 Prodigies Appear. Chapter 2727, 2727 Prodigies Appear. 2727 Prodigies Appear. Binghe, you have already advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Just in time, the realm battlefield has also concocted several 7 deaths 7 explosions pills, which would be extremely beneficial for your cultivation. I have already requested a spot for you. There is no need for you to continue cultivation in seclusion here. It is time for your name to be known throughout the whole world. In a canyon covered with ice and snow, an old, gray-haired man spoke to someone. His beard reached all the way to his chest, but his body looked like it was formed from light and shadow, and did not seem very real. This was because this was not his actual body, but the form taken by a sliver of divine sense. His real body was still at the realm battlefield. This was a supreme character because it wasn't just anyone that could request an additional spot. Yes, Master. Peng. A young man broke out of the ice and emerged. His upper body was bare, his skin as fair as snow and as smooth as jade, reflecting the light cast upon him and exuding a gem-like luster. He had a head of black locks that reached his waist, fluttering in the mountain winds, and also revealing his face. Solemn, calm, and determined, as well as radiating an absolute confidence. After the gray-haired elder made his remark, this sliver of divine sense also vanished, turning into countless shards and scattering. This young man raised his head, looking at the skies. From this day onwards, I, Tai Binghe, will become a legend that will be spread all around this world as it enters into my era. At the shores of a great ocean. Changjun, how many years have you been by my side? A child that looked to be only 6 or 7 years old asked. His arms were crossed behind his back, acting all aged and experienced. Behind him, there was a tall, sturdy young man. All of his muscles stuck out strongly, as if they were rocks. This young man's surname was Qi, and his full name was Qi Changjun. In reply to Master, about 700 million years, Qi Changjun answered respectfully, and did not at all treat the other party lightly just because he looked like a child. He knew that this was the mysterious technique that his master cultivated. Every time he experienced the cycle from infanthood to old age, his cultivation level would advance another step. By now, his master had already experienced this 6 times in total. The windy clouds heavenly venerate, 6th tier. This child in front of him was not the windy clouds heavenly venerate's true body, either, but just a sliver of his divine sense. The windy clouds heavenly venerate nodded. In the blink of an eye, you have grown up from that little kid you were. It is all thanks to the teachings of Master, Qi Changjun said, his head lowered and his eyes filled with adoration. Years ago, he had only been a little homeless beggar. How could he have possibly dared to imagine that there would be a day when he could become a dignified pseudo-heavenly venerate? At the realm battlefield, several 7 deaths 7 explosions pills have been concocted recently. This would be beneficial for you, the windy clouds heavenly venerate said casually. I have already requested a participation spot for you. Go, and there is no need for you to return here again. Kill the enemies at the realm battlefield so that you can break through to the heavenly venerable tier as soon as you can. Yes, Master. At the Tu clan. The Tu clan was an established noble clan. Their grand elder was a 6th tier heavenly venerate, and was strong enough to look down on the rest of the world. 7 deaths 7 explosions pills have once again appeared. Haha, I, too sure, will use this opportunity to appear, and it is also time that the rest of the world knows that aside from the 3 dragons of the Tu clan, there is also a supreme ferocious tiger. A young man laughed loudly as he walked out of his mansion, soaring into the skies. At the Zhu clan. This was also an established noble clan. A 6th-tier heavenly venerate had once emerged from this clan, but this mighty figure had already fallen in the war against Hysteria. However, the Zhu clan still had a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate, who was supporting the whole clan. For the sake of that grand elder of the Zhu clan who had passed, the various forces were still very willing to give the Zhu clan some face. However, the more favors were used, the fewer there would be. After all, they could not keep using their grand elder as a card to garner compassion. Yang, your natural talent is outstanding. It is possible that your future accomplishments would surpass the grand elders. I hope that when you appear this time, you will be able to make your name known, and show the world the prestige of the Zhu clan once more. In the main hall, a grey-haired old man was presently talking to a young girl. This young girl was as beautiful as peach flowers, but her expression was cold as ice. She nodded. Please don't worry, 7th granduncle. Yang will definitely not disappoint the hopes of the clan. Very good, this time, you must make your way into the top 3. And we have also used up all that remaining favors we had just to obtain this one spot for participation. In the future, we really will have to depend all on ourselves. Yang understands. At Cloud Void Waterfall, the Wu clan. This was a dangerous area that was well known in the Flaming Frost realm. It was located in the boundless Star Sea. A waterfall flowed upside down from the starry skies, and should one look closer, they would realize that what was flowing here was not water, but rather chi of primal chaos. Every streak of chi was as heavy as a star, which was extremely terrifying. The Wu clan was located at Cloud Void Waterfall. Usually, not even lower-level celestial kings were worthy of entering. This was one of the strongest clans of the Flaming Frost realm, or even the entire Genesis world, because the Grand Elder of the Wu clan was a 7th-tier heavenly venerate. Ha 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 ha. Following a loud laugh, a figure traversed out of Cloud Void Waterfall. His black hair fluttered wildly, and his eyes seemed capable of penetrating through the void like light, filled with dominance. I, Wu Haoyang, have finally come out of seclusion. Now, there is no one in the world that knows the great name of Wu Haoyang, but it will not take too long before this name is known everywhere in the world. Lin Yolian, Xin Chihu, it is not just the 2 of you that can communicate with the fundamental power of the Genesis world at the 9th heaven. I can too. I will definitely surpass the 2 of you, and trample both of you under my feet. In this tournament of the realm battlefield, this will be the first battle for me, Wu Haoyang. Mediocre fools, prepare to tremble before me. There were a total of 28 additional spots in this tournament. As a result, it had drawn out a great many young prodigies. Previously, they would either keep a low profile or bury themselves completely in cultivation without concern for anything else. Now, however, they all emerged like a swarm. However, Ling Han was completely ignorant of all this. His daily routine was just cultivating and cultivating while waiting for the battles to begin. When he had the time, he would pay a visit to the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, discussing the further evolution of the Indestructible Heavens Scroll. Though the Indestructible Heavens Scroll had the method to practice a Heavenly Venerate technique, it could not help a Heavenly Venerate's physique cultivate to the complete level of devouring metal. This was because of the limitations of the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable himself. At the time, he himself had just been a 1st-tier Heavenly Venerate. Moreover, he had died early, so he did not have so much time. To comprehend a cultivation technique, a prodigy might only need 10 to 100 years, but the time needed to create a whole new cultivation technique was incredibly extensive, and even after it was created, an extremely large amount of time would still be necessary to make adjustments. Ling Han felt that it was unfortunate that he had not forcefully dragged Wally here as well. Otherwise, this Grandmaster of Analysis would definitely be very helpful. Of course, discussion of the Indestructible Heavens Scroll would only be done during their free time. At the moment, for Ling Han, the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, and the others, their top priority was still to advance their cultivation level. A month's time passed very quickly, and it was almost time for the tournament to begin. The authorities called this tournament minor skill demonstration. Though the participants were basically all pseudo-heavenly venerates, in the realm battlefield, even they could only be considered side characters, so it could indeed only be considered a minor skill demonstration. Ling Han went to draw his lot first, and then waited for the results. His first opponent was Go Yang, and their match was also arranged first. There was no other reason except for the fact that Ling Han was presently the number one on the recent leaderboard. When everyone was done drawing their lots, the battles officially began. First match, Ling Han vs Go Yang. The latter was a young man of slender, lanky build, with a pair of mismatched eyes, one golden and the other silver, exuding a devilish air. He showed a smile towards Ling Han, but his smile contained a strong hint of mockery. The number one of the recent leaderboard, hehe, your name is well known. Chapter 2728, 2728 The battle starts. Chapter 2728, 2728 The battle starts. 2728 The battle starts. Ling Han scratched his head. What was wrong with him being the number one on the recent leaderboard? Could this also draw aggravation? Go Yang introduced himself. My ranking is not as high as yours. I am only ranked 89th on the recent leaderboard. Well, duh. The people who could take the field today were the top 100 elites on the recent leaderboard, and only 28 people were outsiders. Still, being able to obtain such a qualification, one had to have extraordinary strength. He looked at Ling Han loftily. So what if he was ranked 89th? Just wait and see how he would thrash Ling Han later. The leaderboard of battle merits wasn't a battle roll or strength roll, but it was still a reflection of every person's strength to a great extent. If one wasn't strong enough, how could one kill so many pseudo-heavenly venerates? Therefore, Ling Han, a 9th heaven celestial king, being ranked first made all the pseudo-heavenly venerates on the leaderboard extremely unhappy. Fuck, what have I done to offend you? Ling Han was extremely unhappy. This is just a sparring match. Is there a need for you to bear such great enmity towards me? Fine, then I'll beat the crap out of you, and let you enjoy it to the fullest. Ranked 89th. Haha. Ling Han's face was full of disdain. How many of my moves can you block? A puny 9th heaven celestial king, merely being a lucky bastard, you think you can be arrogant with me? Go Yang's face darkened. He didn't believe the previous rumors that Ling Han could actually fight against more than 20 pseudo-heavenly venerates. Wasn't this a joke? Even an elite like himself could only contend against 5 pseudo-heavenly venerates at most, and these had to be people who weren't on the recent leaderboard, or 2 would be overwhelming enough. 1 fighting against 20, and furthermore, he was merely a 9th heaven celestial king. I will teach you how to behave properly. Ling Han rushed out, and peng, he immediately burst forth at a terrifyingly high speed with a tap of his foot. The light of fireflies is also worthy of competing with the sun and the moon. Go Yang grabbed a streak of great Tao with his left hand, while his right hand balled into a fist, and he blasted it towards Ling Han. In the minor skill demonstration, contestants were allowed to use celestial tools, but were not allowed to use supreme precious tools. This wasn't intentionally targeting Ling Han, but it was for the sake of fairness. Otherwise, those descendants of heavenly venerates would go and borrow precious tools from their elders, and then it wouldn't be their battle, but rather a competition of strength among the heavenly venerates that supported them. Since Ling Han couldn't use the divine demon sword, he didn't plan on using any celestial tool, either, as his power after using the heavenly venerate technique was even stronger. Peng! Go Yang grabbed a streak of great Tao and smashed it towards Ling Han, but the latter didn't pay any attention to it. He was instantly hit on the head by it, but it only managed to slow down Ling Han slightly. But at this moment, Go Yang's fist also struck towards Ling Han. Ling Han also threw a punch to counter the attack. Boom! The intense clash led to a big explosion. Fortunately, their battle was carried out in a barren field. This place would be ravaged by Hysteria's army every few years, so it had already become a desolate ground, without any other living creatures. Hence, there was no need to be afraid of harming innocent people. Those who were watching the battle stood far away, and of course there were also people with extraordinary confidence who came to the front, thinking that they could not be injured by the aftermath of the battle. Ling Han and Go Yang were seen to retreat more than 50 kilometers from one another, and it seemed that there was hardly any difference between the two of them. This blow also made Ling Han understand that Go Yang had already reached the peak of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. He understood it very well, but Go Yang couldn't accept that he could only fight to a draw with a ninth heaven celestial king. Gasp! Could it be that the rumors weren't just rumors? This thought crossed Go Yang's mind, but now it was already too late to delve into this issue, as he was already facing Ling Han. What he needed to consider now would be how to win against his opponent. Rapid wave fist. Guo Yang yelled lightly, and rushed towards Ling Han. 100 kilometers was only the matter of a single step, and he appeared in front of Ling Han, and threw a punch. This punch was extremely domineering, with the aura of primal chaos descending, and the brilliance of the sun and moon circulating. Peng, 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 peng. Ling Han raised his fist to counter the attack, but he was shocked to realize that Go Yang had thrown 19 punches. Pseudo-heavenly venerates were all excellent in body art. It was not a big deal to throw tens of thousands of punches in an instant. However, Ling Han's punch was already fast enough, but when he threw a single punch, his opponent had actually thrown 19 punches. This was incredible indeed. Was his body art weaker than that of Go Yang? This was obviously impossible, otherwise the two of them couldn't have fought each other to a draw. Then there could only be one reason: the other party had used a secret technique. This was by no means an ordinary secret technique, but one that was at the level of heavenly venerable tier, otherwise Ling Han would not have been injured. Ling Han lifted his hand. He saw that his palm was split open, with blood oozing out. Furthermore, the healing speed was astonishingly slow. His body was like divine metal, and even the power of the pseudo-heavenly venerate could only hurt him at most, but he would recover immediately afterward. However, now that the wound was healing so slowly, there could naturally only be one possibility: their opponent had used a heavenly venerate technique, which was then capable of causing such terrible damage. Having established his might with a single strike, Go Yang actually turned solemn instead of expressing delight. Ling Han's domineering physique shocked him. He himself had used a heavenly venerate technique. If the opponent hadn't similarly used a heavenly venerate technique to counter it, Go Yang would have been seriously injured without a doubt. But now, Ling Han's injuries were too light, which was inconceivable to Go Yang, and he found it unacceptable. How interesting. Ling Han nodded, and launched a counterattack at Go Yang. Then, I will also let you have a taste of my fist. He swung his fist, and there was 9-colored lightning crackling on his fist. This was also a heavenly venerate technique. Peng. Not to be outdone, Go Yang swung his fist in return. This exchange of blows was even more terrifying. Two people with battle prowess of pseudo-heavenly venerable tier used ultimate moves, which resulted in their battle prowess instantly soaring to the level of the heavenly venerable tier. They kept exchanging blows, both wanting to use the greatest force at their disposal to make their opponent bow down. The problem was that no one could endlessly use a heavenly venerate technique. Soon, Ling Han could no longer use the 5 elements lightning technique, and the same was true for Go Yang, as his domineering rapid wave fist technique could no longer be used. Ling Han smiled, and switched to using the 9 transformations divine scroll. It was basically impossible for the heavenly venerate technique to be mastered by a non-heavenly venerate, and the same was true for pseudo-heavenly venerate. Therefore, unless it was like 9 transformations divine scroll and 5 elements lightning technique, which was split into parts by prodigies, and subsequently reassembled to be mastered by celestial kings and pseudo-heavenly venerates, it could only be passed down as an inheritance, like the Black Tower. Therefore, although Go Yang had an elder who was a heavenly venerate, through whom he had learned a heavenly venerate technique by secret transmission, what if he still wanted to learn a second one? He shouldn't even think about it. Peng. As soon as he countered Ling Han's punch, his expression immediately changed drastically. How could this blow be so strong? He had not even finished the thought when he was sent flying. All he could feel was that his entire arm had gone numb, and perhaps even his bones were broken. He was overwhelmed with shock, and felt it was even more inconceivable. How could Ling Han's strength suddenly increase so much? You have actually mastered 2 heavenly venerate techniques. Realization finally dawned on him, but his face was still filled with shock. Though there were many heavenly venerates in the flaming frost realm now, a heavenly venerate technique was also the trump card of every heavenly venerate, so how could it be easily passed on to outsiders? Therefore, it was very rare for one person to possess 2 heavenly venerate techniques. That's correct. Ling Han rushed over again, swinging both his fists continuously, each move boosted with the 9 transformations divine scroll. Faced with such an attack, Go Yang was powerless to resist, so he was being bombarded until he vomited blood unceasingly. He had no choice but to admit defeat and surrender. Ling Han won the first battle. After this battle, Ling Han's strength was finally acknowledged by all. He had struck Go Yang, who was ranked 89th on the recent leaderboard, until the latter conceded defeat. Was this still not regarded as strong? Chapter 2729, 2729 Zhu Yang. Chapter 2729, 2729 Zhu Yang. 2729 Zhu Yang. The other 63 battles were conducted accordingly, and very soon, the 64 candidates that would progress to the next stage all emerged. And among these results, a considerable number of them were unexpected. Take Zhong Yuan, ranked 17th on the recent leaderboard, as an example. He had lost to a man who had been given a special additional participation spot to Shi. And there was also Chang Tian, ranked 31st on the recent leaderboard. He had also lost to a person who was not very well known, and whose name was Zhu Yang. And there was also Zhu Bao, ranked 39th, who had lost to Qi Changjun. Every time an unexpected result emerged, it would cause incredible shock. It should be known that every single person that could be ranked in the top 100 of the recent leaderboard was an elite, and there was definitely no one mediocre among the man exception. Like Ling Han had only appeared once in history. Moreover, Ling Han had also used his strength to show that he was qualified to be ranked first on the recent leaderboard. But now, the veteran elites had all lost one after another, while rookies replaced them. What was going on here? There were actually so many young elites that had been hidden. Then why had they been so unknown before? The most astonishing was a man named Wu Haoyang. He was actually only a 9th heaven celestial king. A 9th heaven celestial king had defeated a pseudo-heavenly venerate, just like Ling Han. When Ling Han found out about this, he, too, was involuntarily surprised. Previously, Lin Piaoxue said that he was not a special case, and there were similarly others that could wield pseudo-heavenly venerable tier power at the 9th heaven celestial king tier, yet the ones she knew about were already characters from several 100 million years ago. However, a real example had appeared now. Hysteria was wreaking havoc, and the whole Genesis world was in peril, but it had also greeted a great boom of prodigies. This Wu Haoyang seems to be worthy of a battle. A smile appeared at the corners of Ling Han's lips. Not only did he not feel the slightest sliver of anxiety, he was instead filled with fighting spirit. Previously, there had been Ji Wuming who constantly exerted endless pressure on him, and then it had been Heaven-born, and they had been obstacles which he definitely had had to pass. By now, the two of them had become a matter of the past. Though Ling Han would not relax, if there was a strong rival, he would definitely be even more motivated. After resting for a few days, the second round of battles continued. There was no need to draw lots for this, as the matches had already been decided during the first drawing of lots. Ling Han's next opponent was named Zhu Yang. Though this person's name had the word rock, he was actually very lanky and slender, without any feeling of sturdiness or hardness. In fact, he was slightly on the thin side. Zhu Yang, he introduced himself. 42nd on the recent leaderboard. Previously, Go Yang had only been ranked at 89th, yet this man was ranked in the top half of the top 100, which showed that his strength was definitely a great increase from Go Yang. Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. He was actually not an arrogant person. Please. Zhu Yang clasped his fists politely, and his gaze suddenly turned harsh and serious. Ling Han also made a gesture of invitation, and then took the initiative to attack first. Peng. The two of them exchanged a blow without any false moves, probing one another. Power of the peak stage pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Both of them mentally concluded so, but Ling Han was nodding mentally. Zhu Yang was indeed stronger than Go Yang. This was decided by their respective natural talent and Zhu Yang's capacity to accommodate power that was greater than Go Yang's. In this instant, neither of them used ultimate moves. Movement and stasis were exhibited in this fist technique at the same time, which was incredibly bizarre. A ripping feeling immediately rose up in Ling Han. On the one side, his body seemed like it wanted to move quickly as well, but on the other side, his body wanted to stay immobile, which caused him great discomfort. It was not just his body, but also his soul as well. It felt like it would be forcibly torn in two. This fist technique is quite interesting. Ling Han used the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, expelling all the discomfort. Heavenly Venerate Technique versus Heavenly Venerate Technique. Seeing how Ling Han was standing firm like a golden bell, enshrouded by countless golden seals and completely dispelling his offensive, Zhu Yang couldn't help but pale. You have actually mastered a third Heavenly Venerate technique. The recording of Ling Han's previous battle with Go Yang had long since been studied, and there naturally would be people who would ask Go Yang. The involved party would definitely have a clearer idea of Ling Han's strength, and they came to the conclusion that Ling Han had mastered two Heavenly Venerate techniques, and that was how he had subdued Go Yang. But now, Ling Han had shown a third Heavenly Venerate technique. Heavens, could it be that there had been 3 Heavenly Venerates that had emerged from his clan before, so each one of them had taught him a different Heavenly Venerate technique? Zhu Yang was thinking furiously. It was not that there weren't any forces that had produced 3 Heavenly Venerates before, but none of them seemed like they had the surname Ling. Tong, tong, tong. Countless attacks landed on Ling Han, and they were all blocked by these protective golden seals, and turned into dazzling bits of light. In the distance, the karmic life Heavenly Venerable nodded with gratification. This disciple's mastery of the indestructible Heaven's Scroll was only inferior to his in level, but in terms of detail, he even looked like he, the disciple, would soon surpass the master. This was very normal. Not only had Ling Han discussed this with Wally before, and made adjustments to the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, he was also extracting void particle energy, and the quality of void particle energy was superior to that unique power of the celestial realm. Hence, if they were both at the level of indestructible divine metal physique, it would definitely be Ling Han who would be superior to the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. I wonder what this 7 deaths 7 explosions pill tastes like. The large black dog smacked his lips. He was naturally confident that Ling Han could make his way into the top 3, and was already thinking about how he was going to steal the prize from Ling Han's hands. Meanwhile, the Empress and the Rain Emperor were watching from the sidelines, similarly hoping that Ling Han could win sooner. In the battle, Zhu Yang was exhibiting his full power. He wanted to blast through Ling Han's defense in a single stroke, and use his superior battle prowess to defeat Ling Han. Otherwise, when he could no longer use the Heavenly Venerate technique, he would only be able to dodge and evade when he was faced with Ling Han's counterattack. He had confidence in himself because his power was stronger. However, the strength of Ling Han's defense caused him to lose all hope. Though every single one of Zhu Yang's punches ripped through the golden seals, whenever a seal dimmed, a new one would immediately come into being, causing the golden bell around Ling Han to be indestructible and immovable. After about half a day later, even Zhu Yang could no longer channel the Heavenly Venerate technique, and his battle prowess immediately fell. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Should we continue this battle?" He only stayed on the defense without attacking, and it was already enough to use up the largest trump card up Zhu Yang's sleeve. Furthermore, he still had 2 Heavenly Venerate techniques that he had yet to use, so how was Zhu Yang supposed to block that? Of course, Zhu Yang declared. Ling Han could exhaust one of his powerful moves, and he was sure that he, too, could do the same. Furthermore, his power was greater, and in terms of standard battle prowess, he would be able to subdue Ling Han. All right. Ling Han rushed forth, throwing out his fists in a barrage of punches. He had not been channeling the 5 elements lightning technique or the 9 transformations divine scroll constantly, but would rather use them on occasion. It was still fine for the 5 elements lightning technique, as there would be clear signs of its use, but there were no warning signs for the 9 transformations divine scroll, which really caught Zhu Yang off guard. If he tried to block it, that strike would be a heavy blow, but if he dodged, and Ling Han was actually just delivering a normal punch, it would be embarrassing for him. Thus, it was seen that Zhu Yang was continuously jumping around, not daring to take one of Ling Han's blows head-on at all. This naturally meant that he would not be able to win. Hence, after a very long period of staying on the defense, he could no longer hold back, and began his counterattack. Peng! As Ling Han met this change with a punch, frightening power erupted. Instantly, Zhu Yang was sent flying. Chapter 2730, 2730 Change of Rules. Chapter 2730, 2730 Change of Rules. 2730 Change of Rules. Zhu Yang had been tricked. He had just realized it when he saw Ling Han burst out with power. Peng! The latter had already caught up to him, and next was a series of furious blows. After this series of moves, Zhu Yang finally could no longer hold on, and collapsed on the ground, unable to stand back up again. Ling Han obtained his second victory easily. In the other battles, those rookies from before continued to play the roles of dark horse, similarly winning easily. The most astonishing one among them was still Wu Haoyang. His opponent was an elite ranked 6th on the recent leaderboard, and he was just a little bit away from breaking through to become a genuine heavenly venerate, but Wu Haoyang still beat down on him. His opponent couldn't even counter a single move, and he could only forfeit the battle in the end. And in these two battles, Wu Haoyang had used a total of 3 heavenly venerate techniques, not inferior to Ling Han. This stunned everyone. That was 3 heavenly venerate techniques. If they used it one after another, who would be able to block it? Ultimately, pseudo-heavenly venerates still had pseudo in their name, meaning that they were not real heavenly venerates. It looked like Ling Han and Wu Haoyang should both be able to obtain a 7 death 7 explosions pill, as long as they did not encounter each other before reaching the top 4. If they did, one of them would definitely be eliminated. Why were the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings all so terrifying? Once the battles for the second round were over, there were only 32 participants left that could continue in the tournament. Several days later, the third tournament round began, and Ling Han met his third opponent. Yu Bolong, his opponent, introduced himself. He had a head of yellow fur, his eyes slitted snake-like pupils that were flashing with green and yellow light. His skin also bore serpent scales, while there were a pair of wings sprouting from his back and a long tail dragging behind him. Recent leaderboard, 7th. The elites in the top 10 could be considered big shots. In truth, Yu Bolong was indeed one of the big shots here. It was said that his general results were already close to climbing the general leaderboard. His time of fighting on the first spatial level far surpassed any other person. It was rumored that he had not broken through to the heavenly venerable tier yet because he wanted to leave his name on the general leaderboard. After all, the recent leaderboard would be updated every 1,000 years, and one's name could only remain there for 1,000,000 years at most, so how could it be compared with the general leaderboard? Ling Han nodded. Ling Han. Please. Yu Bolong did not waste time on words, and moved directly. Boom. With a flap of his wings, a powerful hurricane was created. Dust and dirt flew everywhere, and vision was obscured. Ling Han was slightly surprised because dirt and dust normally could not obstruct the eyesight of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, yet he actually could only glimpse Yu Bolong's vague figure, which naturally was abnormal. What had his opponent done? Shio. Right at this moment, the powerful winds assailed Ling Han, and he watched as Yu Bolong charged towards him, with his wings flapping strongly behind him. He held a spear in hand, which he stabbed towards Ling Han. Ling Han went forwards to meet the attack. Peng, he threw a punch, but his fist directly passed through Yu Bolong's body, and did not land a solid hit at all. Ling Han had used full power in this punch, but it had missed, which immediately made him feel extremely terrible. Thankfully, he had a body of divine metal, or this punch missing would even cause his arm to dislocate. Illusion. Ling Han's eyes narrowed slightly. This was quite interesting. He caught sight of the figure in the cloud of dust. Shio. This figure suddenly became larger, and approached him closely. Yu Bolong had reappeared. This time, however, he was holding a sword in hand, and he stabbed it at Ling Han. Ling Han clenched a fist and threw out a punch in response. Peng. It was just another virtual image. Thankfully, Ling Han was prepared this time, and dissipated the force of his blow in time, so it did not cause him any suffering. However, this illusion technique was quite amazing because Ling Han had no way of distinguishing if the person attacking him was the real one or just a false double. If he did not move to parry, and it was actually the real person attacking him, and he was hit with a powerful attack from a pseudo-heavenly venerate, that would definitely be no joke. Divine metal would also become scrap when faced with the destructive power of the heavenly venerable tier. Yu Bolong continuously appeared and attacked, and Ling Han also continuously countered, treating every single attack like it was one coming from the real body. This would exhaust some of Ling Han's power, but he had abundant stamina now, so this was no big deal. As long as he took note to dissipate the power of his blows when necessary, and did not injure himself, it would be fine. Peng, peng, peng. Over 100 of his punches missed their target in a row. Xiao, as usual, Yu Bolong swept out his saber, and Ling Han met this blow, but it was still a miss. This was not strange at all, but quickly afterwards, another figure appeared. It was still Yu Bolong. At this time, Ling Han was dispersing his power. His figure twisted. This was the moment when his defense would be at its utmost weakest. Break. Yu Bolong moved. The weapon in his hand was a sharp dagger, which he delivered in a stab directed under Ling Han's ribs. This was a celestial tool, which was flickering with countless seals. The real one had finally attacked. Ling Han had expected this. This kind of battle tactic would definitely be a mixture of truth and falsehood, wanting him to panic on his own and reveal a gap in his defense. Wang. Circles of golden seals immediately appeared around his body, and wrapped all around him. Ji. The sharp dagger stabbed the golden seals, but only endless bits of light sparked. There was no way to pierce through Ling Han's defense at all. Yu Bolong had not landed his strike, so he immediately withdrew to retreat, wanting to distance himself, and find another chance to make a second attempt. Get over here. Ling Han moved, grabbing out at Yu Bolong's wrist. This grab was incredibly and extraordinarily fast. Yu Bolong was searching for chances all the time, but wasn't Ling Han doing the same? Pa. Yu Bolong turned around to attack Ling Han, naturally not willing to surrender his hand to Ling Han. Both of their hands danced and flipped fluidly, tapping, pressing, pushing, and striking, conducting an intense contest with each other in a small range. All Ling Han had to do was to cling to his opponent. With a battle cry, his entire approached fluidly. Peng, peng, peng. The two of them continued an endless exchange of blows. At this time, Ling Han's advantage was fully displayed. He had a physique of divine metal. He would not be greatly affected with every punch, kick, or even a strike from the celestial tool, but it was a different story for Yu Bolong. If a punch landed on him, his bones would definitely break and his skin would tear. In this kind of close-quarters fight, neither of them had a chance to use a heavenly venerate technique. Even if this would only take half a heartbeat, they were fighting too intensely, so what time would they have for this? Who knew how many blows they would sustain if they had to delay this little bit of time? Of course, Ling Han could do this. What would it matter if he was hit a few times? His body was akin to divine metal. As long as he was not struck by someone with heavenly venerable tier battle prowess, there would be no issue. Yu Bolong was hit repeatedly. Peng, peng, peng. A series of 17 punches landed consecutively on his chest. His whole face instantly turned crimson, and even his eyes looked close to popping out. I forfeit, he declared. Ling Han stopped and watched as Yu Bolong hurriedly retreated several hundred kilometers away, coughing repeatedly, and bringing up blood with his coughs, which dyed his chest red. Yu Bolong looked meaningfully at Ling Han, then turned, and left. A pseudo-heavenly venerate had lost to a 9th heaven celestial king. Even if he felt great dissatisfaction, and had 10,000 reasons to explain, how could he bring himself to say it? In the other battle stages, the Dark Horses continued their invincible legends, all of them had yet to lose. However, after the top 16 were decided, the tournament rules suddenly changed. Originally, the next round was to produce the top 8 and then the top 4, who would then battle among themselves to decide the first, second, and third. The 3-7 Death 7 Explosions pills would naturally then have their owners. But now, the tournament rules had changed so that one person would be eliminated every day, until there were only 3 people left at the very end, and that would be the end of the tournament. There was no first, second, or third place, just the top 3. The rules were very simple. 16 people would have 1 day's time to contend for 15 spots. After the day was over, the person who had not managed to get a spot would be eliminated. Next, it would be 15 people contending for 14 spots, and so on. Ling Han was quite intrigued. Under such regulations, it was possible that situations of 2 against 1, 5 against 1, or even 15 against 1, wherein the majority would work together to eliminate certain people from the tournament, would arise. The tournament would take place 3 days later. Chapter 2731, 2731 Madman. Chapter 2731, 2731 Madman. 2731 Madman. How long could 3 days be? More importantly, there was not much time that could be wasted here. If it took a long time, what if Hysteria's troops attacked? That would not be fun. After Ling Han made some slight adjustments, he arrived at the venue for the tournament. Because the rules this time round were different, it naturally could no longer be conducted outside the city wall. Instead, a Heavenly Venerate had taken out a Heavenly Venerate tool, and the battles would be conducted after everyone entered into this Heavenly Venerate tool. A Heavenly Venerate tool naturally could withstand the mad barrage from battles between pseudo-Heavenly Venerates. Merely in terms of toughness, it would have to be a 6th-tier Heavenly Venerate at least that could truly damage a Heavenly Venerate tool. The 16 contenders arrived, one after another. If Ling Han was counted as well, there were as many as 6 rookies this time round. The other 10 were all elites on the recent leaderboard, and they all ranked in the top 20. However, after the previous battles, everyone no longer had such an optimistic idea about them, and thought that this was a world that belonged to the rookies. You guys, do you think the sudden change in the tournament is to restrain the rise of the rookies? There were also a great many people who had come to watch. They whispered among themselves, and were also discussing the abrupt change in rules. It is very possible. If it is a one-on-one battle, it is possible that the top 3 spots will all be claimed by rookies. Now that the rules have changed, it is possible that the rookies will be expelled by the combined forces of the veterans one after another. That's right. Firstly, the rookies are unfamiliar with one another, so it is very difficult for them to work together. Secondly, even if the rookies were willing to cooperate, in terms of numbers, they would also be at an absolute disadvantage. Hence, it is possible that the rookies will all be wiped out of the tournament in the first few days. Just when everyone was conversing, a Heavenly Venerate appeared, and announced solemnly, "The 16 tournament participants, you may all enter." Ling Han and the others thus entered into the Heavenly Venerate tool one after another. For the majority, this was nothing unfamiliar. They definitely had a Heavenly Venerable tier elite supporting them, so they would definitely have come in contact with Heavenly Venerate tools before. This was a barren space, very much like the depths of the galaxy. There was nothing here, yet 15 chairs appeared abruptly here now, every chair set far apart from the others. Additionally, there was also a giant hourglass, but the sand inside had not started flowing yet. Clearly, when the hourglass moved, the battles would begin. When the sand in the hourglass finished flowing, that day would end. The person who had not managed to get a seat could only withdraw from the tournament in dejection. Just when the 16 people were still observing, the hourglass moved. The tournament had already begun. Hee. As expected, the 10 veterans stood together, sizing up the 6 rookies. Clearly, after they had found out the present rules of the tournament, they already kept each other informed, and reached a mutual agreement, to eliminate the rookies from the tournament first. Ling Han had not been informed, so he naturally had been rejected. "Will you guys leave of your own volition, or do you choose to be expelled by our combined forces?" one of the veterans asked. "Nothing but a bunch of pushovers. You think you are worthy of acting insolent in front of me?" Wu Haoyang stepped out, his pride soaring sky high. "I alone can deal with all of you together. How dare you? Insolence!" The veterans all shouted angrily. All of them had powerful backgrounds, They were the descendants of either 3rd tier or 4th tier heavenly venerates. Haha, just see how I will sweep all of you aside, trash. Wu Haoyang took the initiative to charge out. Wang. His whole body glowed, and could no longer be seen clearly. Xiu. He made a move on the veterans, countless beams of light shooting out simultaneously. This guy was really very arrogant. He really had challenged 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates all by himself. It should be known that these 10 people were all elites on the recent leaderboard. Who among them was not a prodigy among prodigies? But Wu Haoyang ignored all that, and charged over decisively, challenging the 10 great elites all by himself. What arrogance! The 10 great elites all roared in fury, each of them moving to strike out at Wu Haoyang. This was the inside of a heavenly venerate tool, and every single movement would be genuinely recorded by the heavenly venerate tool, and would then be replayed outside. Hence, the spectators could all see this suicide-like action from Wu Haoyang. This guy, he's mad. Those are 10 pseudo-heavenly venerates, and all of them are super elites that could possibly break through in the next very instant. One is already hard to deal with, and it will mean definite defeat to fight 2 at the same time, what more when there are 10 of them? 6 against 10, there may be just a little bit of chance. This guy has cast aside the rest of the group, he is merely committing suicide. Everyone shook their head. This young man truly had freakish talent, possessing strength that could match pseudo-heavenly venerable tier when he was only a 9th heaven celestial king, but it was also due to this that he had become too arrogant, and actually dared to act so recklessly. If one was too self-centered, he would definitely suffer in the future. Ling Han's eyes were also narrowed slightly. Could it be that Wu Haoyang had the same physique as he did? Otherwise, how could he dare to fight all 10 of them alone? The results were soon out. Wu Haoyang did not have a super strong physique, but he turned into a streak of light. He had really become untouchable by any attack, and would not be harmed by any power. The attacks delivered by the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates could not even touch him, so what damage could there be? But Wu Haoyang's attacks were extremely domineering. As his hands threw out blasts, streaks of light blinded the eyes. In fact, they could even directly enter into the mind, and inflict damage on the spirit itself. This was very frightening, and all the 10 great elites grunted. Due to them being off guard, they suffered a slight loss. Through just this exchange, Wu Haoyang could be proud of himself. A 9th heaven celestial king faced 10 peak stage pseudo-heavenly venerates, yet it was he that had taken the upper hand. This was practically a strange phenomenon that had never been seen before. Too amazing. Why has such a powerful man never been heard of before? Could it be that he will be creating a miracle? Everyone was exclaiming in shock, and even Ling Han was slightly surprised, feeling moved by Wu Haoyang's strength. Wu Haoyang followed up on his advantage. He attacked relentlessly, blasting out majestic light continuously. This possessed frightening destructive power, and even the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates were slightly worn out from parrying, no longer able to form an effective, collaborated offensive. Merely from this angle, Wu Haoyang was really strong. He alone beat down on 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates so hard that they were forced to fight alone. They had no choice but to temporarily retreat, leaving the scope of attack for Wu Haoyang. Then, after a slight pause, they all used various heavenly venerate techniques, which surged forward to counter Wu Haoyang. The power of ants. Wu Haoyang laughed madly. He was still unafraid, and aggressively charged forwards to meet this offense. His body was extremely strange. Even the heavenly venerate techniques used by the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates could not touch him, they could only suffer under his mad barrage of attacks. Not only did this shock and confuse the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates, the spectators outside were also grasping their heads and exclaiming at how inconceivable this was. Even Ling Han and the other rookies couldn't help but frown, because eventually they themselves would have to face Wu Haoyang. If it was them, how would they neutralize this situation? Ling Han was also asking himself mentally, how could Wu Haoyang be so strong? Firstly, he had to have used one of the 6 fundamental powers of the Genesis world to temper his body, and only that could allow him to possess pseudo-heavenly venerable tier battle prowess when he himself was only a 9th heaven celestial king. Secondly, This cultivation technique that he was using was extremely unique, allowing him to ignore even heavenly venerate techniques. Ling Han closed his eyes and analyzed this carefully. After a while, he came up with a deduction. Perhaps Wu Haoyang could draw upon and use void particle energy or a similar energy. It was superior to that unique power of the flaming frost realm. Precisely because this kind of energy was unleashing its might, even the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates could not succeed in their attacks. As for why Wu Haoyang could use the power that only heavenly venerates could use, that was something that only he knew. Chapter 2732, 2732 Invincible. Chapter 2732, 2732 Invincible. 2732 Invincible. This kind of scene was really unforgettable. A ninth heaven celestial king had unleashed his divine might, and actually beat down on 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates so hard that they could only parry. What kind of monster was this? Even Ling Han felt an urge to mock this, though it was usually others that would be calling him a monster. Wu Haoyang was not the type that would only rely on his natural talent. He was arrogant, but he was not dumb at all. He focused his attack on one single pseudo-heavenly venerate, and no matter how the others attacked him, he ignored it. There was no way he could be wounded at all. And various heavenly venerate techniques were channeled with his hands, very soon crippling that pseudo-heavenly venerate, who lost all ability to continue. Wu Haoyang chuckled, and set his eyes on another pseudo-heavenly venerate. It was just less than half a day's time, and there were 5 pseudo-heavenly venerates that were inflicted with serious injuries, unable to continue the battle. Everyone was shocked, not daring to believe this at all. If it was claimed that Wu Haoyang had mastered a heavenly venerate technique, how could it be that the others had not? Furthermore, why could he maintain this state constantly, and no force could wound him at all? This was too weird. This was equivalent to cheating. How could others possibly defeat him? It should be known that pseudo-heavenly venerates were ultimately not heavenly venerates, so they could not possibly use a heavenly venerate technique all the time, but Wu Haoyang had broken this fixed rule and created a miracle. Is this really a ninth heaven celestial king? Are you sure that this is not a disguised heavenly venerate? Everyone was starting to doubt this. This was too abnormal. Hehe, if you guys knew whom he is descended from, you would not have such doubts, the heavenly venerate that was overseeing the battle said calmly. Everyone couldn't help but turn their eyes towards him. That heavenly venerate smiled. His surname is Wu. Just think, what other mighty figure has the surname of Wu? Wu, Wu, Wu. After thinking for a while, some people couldn't help but look astonished. There were a good number of heavenly venerates with the surname Wu, but there should only be one that could request a spot of participation, and could also be considered a powerful figure. 7th tier heavenly venerate, Wu Jihong. If Wu Haoyang was the descendant of a 7th tier heavenly venerate, then it was understandable. That was because a 7th tier heavenly venerate was omnipotent, so what would nurturing a freak be worth? The 6th, the 7th, the 8th. The day had not passed when the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates had all been defeated one after another, losing all ability to battle. Wu Haoyang stood proudly, showing invincible might. The eyes of those female cultivators outside were all shining brilliantly, their owners wanting nothing more than to rush inside so they could pounce on Wu Haoyang. Whether it was Wu Haoyang's own strength or his background, they were enough to make him someone who would be sought after by many. This was the kind of dream husband that all women fantasized about. At that moment, everyone was quiet, seemingly to show respect to Wu Haoyang. Wu Haoyang showed a proud grin. In his eyes, this was just a matter of course. He was a man that would eventually pull the 2 supreme freaks, Lin Yolian and Xin Chihu, off their high horse. All others would be mediocre, and were completely below his notice. He directly walked to one of the chairs, and then took a seat. Ling Han and the others all had varying thoughts on their minds, but they each found a place and sat down. The day had passed, and not one of the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates stood back up. All of them were eliminated from the tournament. Who would have anticipated this result? They had thought that with the joined forces of the 10 great pseudo-heavenly venerates, it would definitely have been the rookies that would all have been eliminated. They had not thought that they would all have been defeated by a supreme freak instead. After this battle, Wu Haoyang's name shot sky high, no other capable of matching him. Even despite Ling Han's previous battle, which was a confrontation against more than 20 pseudo-heavenly venerates. But firstly, out of these pseudo-heavenly venerates, only he Yufeng alone had his name on the recent leaderboard, and he was only ranked in the 800s to 900s, so how could he compare to these 10 people? Additionally, Wu Haoyang had defeated these people, unlike Ling Han, whom those pseudo-heavenly venerates just couldn't harm. With such a comparison, it was naturally Wu Haoyang that would seem stronger. Ling Han returned. The Empress, the Rain Emperor, the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable, and the large black dog had all come, and they were all discussing Wu Haoyang. This is unfathomable strength. Though Heavenborn had a body of divine metal, a pseudo-heavenly venerate would be enough to restrain him, and should they use a heavenly venerate technique, they would be able to deal him serious injury. But Wu Haoyang is completely unaffected by any force, and cannot be injured by any power. How could there be such a monster? Could it be that he is nurtured from the flaming frost realm itself? No, I heard that he is the descendant of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate. The Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable pondered for a moment. I think that this should be related to that 7th-tier heavenly venerate. Otherwise, even if this man can now communicate with the fundamental power of the Genesis world, it is still not possible that he can possess such divine might. Ling Han and the others nodded as well. This deduction was more logical. I'll find a chance to battle him tomorrow, and I will be able to gain a more subjective understanding of him, Ling Han said. Little Han, that's not appropriate, is it? The large black dog hurriedly asked. In any case, there is the 7 deaths 7 explosions pill. With your strength, obtaining one of those pills naturally is an easy matter. What need is there for you to battle so soon with Wu Haoyang? He persuaded, it would be better for you to wait until you have obtained the prize, and then spar with him. Even the Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable expressed agreement. He was very confident in Ling Han's strength, but Wu Haoyang was really too powerful. There was really no need to battle with him now. Ling Han could not hold up against their persuasion, so he could only agree to maintain a low profile, and obtain the prize first. It was the second time for the tournament to continue, but 10 chairs had been withdrawn directly. 6 people were left to contend for 5 seats. They entered into the Heavenly Venerate Tool one after another, and stood more than 50 kilometers away from each other. I really had not expected that 10 people would have been eliminated in a single stroke yesterday. This kind of unexpected result is what is exciting. Would there be 3 people directly eliminated today, and the final 3 would be produced? It is possible. Outside, everyone was chatting spiritedly. Going by Wu Haoyang's personality, he definitely would not be playing by the rules this time round, either. The hourglass moved, and the tournament had begun. Wu Haoyang crossed his arms behind his back. All of you, get out. What? Everyone was dazed upon hearing this. He had defeated 10 veterans all by himself yesterday, and today he wanted to clash against all the other rookies. Were you planning to make yourself a public enemy? This guy was indeed unwilling to behave, and he was even more extreme this time. If Ling Han and the others all forfeited, there would not be any top 3, and he would be the only victor. Shouldn't those 3 7 deaths 7 explosions pills be given to him then? It could not be denied that though Wu Haoyang was arrogant in his manner of doing things, he was not the slightest bit foolish. See, hadn't he created a chance for himself to be able to take the prizes of the top 3 all for himself? Was this not clever? Was this not innovative enough? Wu Haoyang, you really think that you are strong to the point of being invincible? Qi Changjun spoke, his muscles protruding strongly, exuding an astonishing feeling of strength. It seemed like once blood started flowing, even the stars would be struck down. Stop spouting nonsense. If you guys will not scram on your own, I will give you guys a hand, Wu Haoyang declared impatiently. He was sure that if he had 3 7 deaths 7 explosions pills, then not only would he be able to advance to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, he would be able to forge onwards a great distance from there. His targets were Lin Yolian and Xin Chihu, and he was frantically trying to catch up to the two of them and then defeat them so he could announce to the world that only he was the strongest prodigy in the entire Genesis world, and it was only he that would be able to defeat Hysteria in the future. He had no time to waste with these so-called prodigies. They were not worthy of his time at all. Then, we can only settle this on the battlefield, Zhu Yang said coldly, her aloof and icy demeanor even more apparent. Everyone was prepared to make their move. It was not just Wu Haoyang, it was possible that the others would also become their enemies. Bunch of stubborn idiots. Wu Haoyang charged out aggressively. Chapter 2733, 2733 Solution. Chapter 2733, 2733 Solution. 2733 Solution. Wu Haoyang was extremely overbearing. In his eyes, whether it was the 10 elites of the recent leaderboard from yesterday, or these rookies that had risen as a new force, they would all be swept aside by his overwhelming power. He spread out his arms, one arm turning into boundless vines that extended towards Ling Han, Tai Binghe, Tu Shi, and Zhu Yang, while the other arm turned into a fiery dragon that descended on Qi Changjun. The vines instantly grew out, turning into a forest as if they would isolate Ling Han and the others so Wu Haoyang and Qi Changjun could battle first. Qi Changjun let out a battle cry, and approached fearlessly. Peng! The fiery dragon blasted into him, flames surging, but Qi Changjun rushed out of the flames in an instant. The clothes he was wearing were all burning red, but his skin that was exposed was unscathed. This was astonishing. The robes that he had been wearing had been woven from threads forged from divine metal. Now, even the divine metal was completely red from the heat, but his skin did not show any change at all. This defense was too strong. Haha, it is not just you that has an invincible defense. Qi Changjun laughed loudly, his arms coming together as he hammered strongly down on Wu Haoyang. You call this invincible? Wu Haoyang scoffed. He raised his right arm, and peng, he immediately parried the blow that Qi Changjun's joined arms were about to land on him. Just see how I will tear this defense apart. On the other side, the forest of vines had already been destroyed. Several young prodigies stood proudly, all exuding a fighting spirit that soared sky high. However, they did not move, but merely stood with their arms crossed behind their backs, observing the battle between Qi Changjun and Wu Haoyang in silence. They were too proud, and disdained joining forces with others. I really have underestimated you guys slightly. However, there is not much difference. Wu Haoyang laughed loudly, and again charged to attack Qi Changjun. Qi Changjun was domineering as well, charging forwards with his fists. Boom! 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 The two of them exchanged blows. In terms of power, it was still Qi Changjun that had a slight upper hand, but it had not reached the point that it would give him a crushing advantage. Your ability only goes so far. Qi Changjun sneered. Is that so? Wu Haoyang revealed a devilish grin. Wang. He suddenly exuded light from all over, and then turned into a streak of light. Here it was again. Everyone was serious. Yesterday, after Wu Haoyang had turned into a streak of light, he could not be touched by any attack or wounded by any force. Now, he again entered into such a state. Did Qi Changjun have any way to solve this? Boom! Qi Changjun brandished his fists, yet they simply swept through Wu Haoyang's body, and did not cause the slightest bit of damage. As expected, even Qi Changjun had no solution. Hee. Wu Haoyang laughed coldly, stretching out his right hand to grab at Qi Changjun's head. This move had a very strong demeaning nature, clearly showing his disdain for Qi Changjun. Qi Changjun humphed, and his figure retreated rapidly. He had naturally thought about what he should do when he was on the receiving end of a counterattack from Wu Haoyang if his attack did not take effect. Thus, this blow from Wu Haoyang had not exceeded his expectations. Wu Haoyang's strike instantly missed. He did not take it to heart, though. With a tap of his foot, his figure pounced out once more, setting off after Qi Changjun. The two of them battled once more, but this could no longer be called a battle. No matter what Qi Changjun did, he could not land a hit on Wu Haoyang. Then, no matter how heaven-defying his battle prowess was, there was no way he could unleash it. Thus, this was a one-sided chase. Wu Haoyang chased, while Qi Changjun fled. It could not be said that Qi Changjuan's strength was inferior to Wu Haoyang, but Wu Haoyang presently could not be wounded by any power, and was completely invincible, so Qi Changjun could only run continuously. Could it be that there was nothing that could be done to Wu Haoyang? His battle prowess was indeed very strong, and he had mastered at least 3 heavenly venerate techniques, but everyone here thought that they would not be inferior to him. But how could they manage to wound Wu Haoyang? This had thus become their greatest problem. Previously, when Heavenborn had just entered into the world's paramount martial academy, even 9th heaven celestial kings were helpless against him, and that was because he had a body of divine metal. Yet now, Wu Haoyang had progressed even further from that. He couldn't even be touched. It should be known that Heavenborn could still be subdued, and could still be trapped, but there really was nothing that could be done to Wu Haoyang. "Let me try," Tusha exclaimed, and charged towards Wu Haoyang. He pounced like a ferocious tiger, his whole body wrapped with shadowy light, as if this was the primal chaos that had been around when the world first came into being, exuding the air of that ancient, primitive age. "It is the same if I defeat you first." Wu Haoyang turned around, and blasted Tusha. Peng! Tusha delivered a strike, but it still passed through Wu Haoyang's body. Similarly, it could not cause any damage. "You have overestimated your own abilities." Wu Haoyang smirked coldly, and struck out at Tusha. Tusha hurriedly retreated, but it was still too late. The strike swept against him, and instantly left behind a wound in his torso. Blood gushed out in torrents. Thankfully, he had managed to retreat quite quickly, so this injury was not too serious. "Who else is there?" Wu Haoyang stood, his arms crossed behind his back. He realized that though the 5 people here today still could not do anything to him, their strength was much greater than that of the 10 from yesterday, and they would not be so easy to deal with. Of course, he was still invincible. "Let me try, then." Zhu Yang stepped out. Her figure was slender and enchanting, as cold as ice, yet alluring as peach blossoms at the same time. A stunned expression flashed across Wu Haoyang's face, but he immediately withdrew it. In his eyes, beautiful women were only to be used to add flavor to life, while cultivation was irreplaceable. Zhu Yang charged out. She unleashed a powerful move. She sliced out with her hand, and it was like a divine phoenix whipped its tail. The whole galaxy was dazzling with brilliant light, but it was still useless. Wu Haoyang was just standing there, as if he was the overlord of the heaven and earth, and every single attack would have no effect on him. Tai Binghe also threw out a punch, which became a bear of ice. Boom! The bear of ice passed through Wu Haoyang's body, and he was completely unharmed. Everyone was speechless. Was there really an invincible defense in this world? "Do you still want to try?" Wu Haoyang pointed at Ling Han. He knew that this was the man that was ranked number 1 on the recent leaderboard. At the same time, he could also be considered a rookie. However, so what if he was number 1? In his eyes, everyone else was trash. Naturally, Ling Han threw a punch, the force turning into a streak of light that shot towards Wu Haoyang. Pu. This streak of light still surged through Wu Haoyang's body, but everyone exclaimed in slight surprise because the streak of light that Wu Haoyang had turned into actually wavered slightly as well. It worked. Ling Han released a battle cry, and charged towards Wu Haoyang. He threw a punch, but Wu Haoyang reacted this time, and retaliated with a punch of his own. Peng! In front of everyone's disbelieving eyes, Ling Han's fist and Wu Haoyang's fist actually crashed into each other. Ling Han could touch him, he could actually touch him. Tusha and the others were all overjoyed. Though it was not they who had done it, it still proved that Wu Haoyang was not absolutely invincible. Realization dawned on Ling Han. So, one who has tempered his body with the fundamental power of the Genesis world can hit you. Previously, he had only delivered force with his attacks, but had not landed any actual blows. That was why it had only had a slight effect on Wu Haoyang. However, Ling Han struck with his actual fist this time. The effect was completely different. A sliver of surprise appeared on Wu Haoyang's face as well. The counter for this cultivation technique of his was actually very simple. One only had to attack him with the fundamental power of the Genesis world. But what did this signify? Even a first-tier heavenly venerate could not wound him. Because this is an ability that the 7th-tier heavenly venerate of the Wu clan had paid a considerable price for and personally instilled for him. But here, a 9th heaven celestial king had actually landed a solid hit on him. Chapter 2734, 2734 Evenly Matched. Chapter 2734, 2734 Evenly Matched. 2734 Evenly Matched. Wu Haoyang was quite surprised. This was because his grandfather, that 7th-tier heavenly venerate, had actually personally bestowed on him such power that allowed him to be fearless against all powerful enemies below the level of 2nd-tier heavenly venerate. But now, a 9th heaven celestial king actually had the ability to pose a threat to him. I didn't expect that besides Lin Yolian, Xin Chihu, and myself, there would be a 4th person who mastered the fundamental power of the Genesis world before reaching the level of a 2nd-tier heavenly venerate, Wu Haoyang said, but his arrogance remained. If even Lin Yolian and Xin Chihu were people whom he wanted to surpass, then what would Ling Han be counted as? In a battle at the same level, Wu Haoyang was confident that he could crush any opponent. Come on, let me teach you what it means to be truly invincible. Wu Haoyang made a move and blasted a shot towards Ling Han. Ling Han was also filled with excitement. He had wanted to fight Wu Haoyang yesterday, but at that time, Wu Haoyang was battling against the veterans, and Ling Han felt it wasn't appropriate to make a move. Subsequently, he was also persuaded by Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable and the others not to, so he decided to postpone it. Now this fight was exactly what he wanted. He fearlessly exchanged blows with Wu Haoyang. Wu Haoyang used a heavenly venerate technique, blasting out a mass of flames which superseded the power of the regulations, such that even the regulations of fire itself might be burned to ashes. Ling Han immediately felt that his body was going through scorching heat and extreme pain. The power of the heavenly venerate technique was too great, especially when it was circulated and launched through the hands of a prodigy such as Wu Haoyang. It was totally the battle prowess of a first-tier heavenly venerate. Ling Han circulated the 5 elements lightning technique, and started exchanging blows with Wu Haoyang. This battle was akin to a spear fighting against a spear, both going all out by using their strongest attacks to defeat their opponent. Of course, such a battle was indeed fierce, and even if a first-tier heavenly venerate was to step in, it would be impossible to stop them without using any powerful techniques. After advancing into the 9th heaven, Ling Han's duration of channeling the heavenly venerate technique had been extended by a lot, while Wu Haoyang was at the same level as him, being equally talented, with almost the same duration of channeling the heavenly venerate technique. This kind of clash between the two was enough to last for an entire day. However, after fighting for about half a day, both of them frowned. They had to admit that their opponent was freakish enough to contend against themselves, but the one-day battle was too short for them to determine who was going to be the winner. However, both of them were arrogant and wanted to suppress one another. Naturally, neither one would stop, so they continued to fight. Tu Shi and the others felt rueful. The one who could restrain Wu Haoyang was actually a 9th heaven celestial king. To say nothing of them, even a first-tier heavenly venerate couldn't do anything to Wu Haoyang, but the latter was actually being restrained by Ling Han. Come to think of it, this was actually quite interesting. Time was still slowly ticking away, the hourglass was almost empty. Tu Shi and the others couldn't care less about watching the battle anymore. They retreated one after another, grabbed a chair, and sat down. Ling Han and Wu Haoyang gave a loud roar at the same time. While continuing to fight fiercely with one another, they dashed towards the last chair. Both have regarded this chair as the key point to determine the outcome, and whoever grabbed it first would be considered to have the upper hand in this contest. The speed of the two was so fast that they were already in front of the chair in the blink of an eye, but neither of them could sit down on it. Ling Han could hurt Wu Haoyang, and Wu Haoyang could hurt him too. Who would dare to risk having to sustain an attack to just sit down? Their attacks became fiercer and fiercer, and soon there were only 3 grains of sand left in the hourglass. Scram! Wu Haoyang snarled, and shot out a punch, setting off boundless raging energy. There was an aura of primal chaos descending as he pushed his battle prowess to the pinnacle. You scram. As Ling Han also punched out, the 9 transformations divine scroll and the 5 elements lightning technique exploded together. He also went all out. Peng. Both of their bodies trembled at the same time, and then they were sent flying one after another. There were 2 grains of sand left, but the 2 were still in midair. Could it be that these 2 outstanding prodigies were going to be eliminated one after another? That would be really funny. People outside were all thinking that depending on the situation, the 2 of them, Ling Han and Wu Haoyang, might not be able to make it back before the last grain of sand was exhausted. Moreover, even if they could come back in time, seeing that their battle prowess was so closely matched, they would still fight to suppress each other. Hence, no one could gain the upper hand. That would still be a stalemate, no one could win, and they would still be eliminated together. Who asked them to fight each other to the death? Xiao, the momentum of their retreat had been expended fully. They surged back, and rushed towards the last chair. That's mine. Wu Haoyang roared. In your dreams. Ling Han sneered as his speed completely exploded. As the last grain of sand fell, today's contest came to an end, and those who had not grabbed a seat would be kicked out. Who could it be? Everyone's eyes widened as there was a flash of light, and there was already one more person standing in front of them. Wu Haoyang. What about Ling Han? There was no second flash of light to send out the second person. Could it be? One after another, they all looked at the projection of the heavenly venerate tool. Who else could it be sitting on the last chair except Ling Han? It was just that Ling Han was obviously uncomfortable as only the edge of his buttocks managed to touch the chair, and his sitting posture was indeed extremely awkward. But no matter how unsightly he appeared, he stayed and was qualified to continue in the competition, while Wu Haoyang was ruthlessly eliminated. Ah! Wu Haoyang roared, his eyes bursting with flames as he could not resign himself to the outcome. Obviously, he ought to be able to defeat all the pseudo-heavenly venerates with his strength, but now that he was eliminated in advance, how could he accept it? Ling Han, he roared angrily. Xiao. The group of 5 including Ling Han came out of the heavenly venerate tool. They were the winners, and would be able to continue with the competition tomorrow. Without saying another word, Wu Haoyang immediately rushed over to fight Ling Han again. Stop, the first tier heavenly venerate here reprimanded as he stretched out his hand to grab him. Do you think you can discipline me? Wu Haoyang was extremely arrogant, and he didn't give that heavenly venerate any face at all. His body transformed into a blazing light, and he was impenetrable by any force, just aiming his attacks at Ling Han. That heavenly venerate was extremely angry, but he was only a first-tier heavenly venerate, so how could he do anything to the current Wu Haoyang? Just like everyone else, his moves were all useless, and he couldn't touch even a single strand of hair on Wu Haoyang's body. Wu Haoyang, you've gone too far, that heavenly venerate shouted in a deep voice, feeling great embarrassment at the same time. He was a dignified heavenly venerate, after all. Gone too far. Wu Haoyang paused. Fine, I'll deal with you first. Let's see who else dares to stop me. He no longer attacked Ling Han, but rushed towards that heavenly venerate. This made everyone grit their teeth. You are too crazy, you even dare to make a move against a heavenly venerate. Impudence. That heavenly venerate finally became furious. He beckoned with his hand, and a heavenly venerate tool promptly fell into his palm. It was an ancient mirror. With a light exclamation, he aimed the ancient mirror at Wu Haoyang, and a beam of light shot out immediately. Wu Haoyang underestimated his opponent. He neither dodged nor avoided the shot at all, and was directly hit by the light, which caused him to fall down immediately, and he stumbled on his feet. A first-tier heavenly venerate couldn't hurt him, but that didn't mean that the same was true for a heavenly venerate tool. That heavenly venerate took advantage of the success to deliver the next move. He came up towards Wu Haoyang in a single stride, and swung the ancient mirror at him like a hammer. Peng, there was a muffled sound as Wu Haoyang was hit by this blow as well, and directly fell to the ground. This place suppressed the cultivation level. In fact, there was no difference in battle prowess between the first-tier heavenly venerate and pseudo-heavenly venerate. The most would be that first-tier Heavenly Venerate was able to constantly channel a Heavenly Venerate technique, and would definitely win against all pseudo-Heavenly Venerates in a long, drawn-out battle. However, Wu Haoyang originally would have nothing to fear. Who asked him to be so crazy? As a result, was hit by the Heavenly Venerate tool, bringing about his instantaneous defeat. Chapter 2735, 2735 Seizing the Alchemical Pill. Chapter 2735, 2735 Seizing the Alchemical Pill. 2735 Seizing the Alchemical Pill. The match will continue tomorrow, said the Heavenly Venerate. Everyone turned to look at Wu Haoyang, who was lying on the ground. Fortunately, this guy had been knocked unconscious, otherwise he would be making a lot of commotion right now. Everyone dispersed. People like Ling Han and the others also needed to make proper adjustments to deal with the next day's battle. When he got back to his own abode, Rain Emperor and the others came over one after another. Good job in eliminating Wu Haoyang. The large black dog was very excited. That guy is too arrogant. Unexpectedly, our little Han is not weak, either, and can actually hurt his body. Everyone has a weakness indeed. Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable nodded with a smile. If there hadn't been a Ling Han, then Wu Haoyang would have been absolutely invincible. However, Ling Han could actually restrain him. Conversely, although Ling Han's physique was like divine metal, he wasn't invincible in the face of Heavenly Venerable tier battle prowess. As long as Tu Shi and the others joined forces, the chances of Ling Han being outmatched would likely be very high. Wu Haoyang should have been extremely depressed. Why did the heavens allow one Ling Han to appear before him? At this point, little Han should be able to secure the victory. The large black dog smiled, and then instigated, "Little Han, are you going to follow Wu Haoyang's example, and beat up all the remaining 4 people tomorrow so that you alone can get the 7 death 7 explosions pills?" Karmic Life Heavenly Venerable immediately shook his head. Ling Han is not Wu Haoyang. It's just that his body is like divine metal, and he is not invincible. If he exhibits such thoughts, he will definitely be targeted. With the joint efforts of the 4 elites, there is a high chance that he will be defeated. Tu Shi, Qi Changjun, Zhu Yang, and Tai Binghu. Each one of them wasn't a prodigy capable of leading their generation. Fighting one-on-one, Ling Han could be fearless, while fighting one-on-two would make it difficult for Ling Han to win, and he would be powerless to even fight back when fighting one-on-3. The large black dog couldn't help but feel it was a pity. He had always been very greedy. The day's time passed by quickly, and the tournament continued. Ling Han didn't see Wu Haoyang, and he had no idea whether this guy hadn't woken up yet or he felt ashamed, and couldn't face other people. Ling Han didn't care. His immediate goal was to get his hands on the 7 death 7 explosions pill. Upon entering the Heavenly Venerate tool, the competition quickly continued. 5 people, fighting for 4 positions. After a brief confrontation, a scuffle broke out immediately. Ling Han wasn't targeted, because he wasn't as invincible as Wu Haoyang, and he wasn't as aggressive as Wu Haoyang, so Tu Shi and the others were quite well behaved. After a day of battles, Tu Shi became the second rookie to be eliminated. He was wearing a very surly expression. In fact, it couldn't be said that his strength wasn't enough, but it was just that he was sent flying from the blows at that moment, and when he came running back, the sand in the hourglass had run out. Just like with Wu Haoyang the day before yesterday, it wasn't a matter of strength, but rather it was more a matter of luck. At present, there were still 4 people remaining. As long as one more got eliminated, this game would be over. Who would be the one? After resting for one day, the competition continued for the final day. After fighting with each other for a while, the 4 elites were divided into 2 groups fighting fierce battles. Ling Han was clashing with Qi Changjun, while Zhu Yang was facing Tai Binghe. As long as one person among them got defeated, the remaining 3 would emerge victorious. However, with their abilities, there wouldn't be any problem to use a Heavenly Venerate technique for a day. In their current state, they were practically unparalleled in battle prowess, and no one could actually suppress the other. Hence, the day was almost over, yet the 4 of them were still engaged in a fierce battle. There was only slightly more than a dozen grains of sand left in the hourglass. The four of them were no longer trying to defeat their opponent, but were targeting the chairs as they kept on attacking. 9 grains of sand. Peng, 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 the four people were attacking one another. It was no longer a fierce 2-on-2 battle, but a 4-person battle royal. Anyone whose battle prowess was slightly inferior would be sent flying, and he would naturally be eliminated. It had already come to this point. Who would want to fall at the last moment? The four of them continued attacking with their ultimate moves, and they absolutely didn't care who it was, but as long as one person among them was sent flying, that would do. 7 grains, 5 grains, and then 3 grains of sand. When there was only 1 grain of sand left, all of them roared, and blasted out with their respective ultimate moves using all their strength. Peng, a terrifying wave surged, and a figure was finally blown away, while the remaining 3 immediately seized their seats. The last grain of sand had fallen, and the game was over. In a flash of light, someone had been kicked out. It was Tai Binghe. In other words, the final winners were Ling Han, Zhu Yang, and Qi Changjun. Shua, Shua, Shua. The 3 of them also came out of the Heavenly Venerate tool after a while. Very good, very good. That Heavenly Venerate nodded with a smile. Congratulations to you for fighting your way out. This is your reward. Hopefully, you will be able to kill even more of Hysteria's army. He took out a pill bottle, and handed it over to Ling Han first. Ling Han took it, and said, "Thank you, my lord." That Heavenly Venerate smiled in response. He didn't dare to put on airs in front of Ling Han, as it might not take long for the other party to catch up and be on par with him in terms of battle prowess, and then to catch up to him in terms of cultivation level. Perhaps in another billion years, it would conversely be his turn to address the other party as lord. Hence, now would be the time to create a good relationship. Why was Ling Han the first to be given the reward? Of course, careful considerations had been made. The second person to receive the reward was Zhu Yang. We will never forget the sacrifice that Senior Zhu has made for the Genesis world, that Heavenly Venerate said in a deep voice. Zhu Yang looked solemn as she took the pill bottle. I definitely won't bring disgrace upon my ancestors. The third one was of course Qi Changjun. That Heavenly Venerate stretched out his hand, and handed over the pill bottle. Shua. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed past at an astonishing speed. Who would have thought that someone would launch a sneak attack at this moment? Nevertheless, that Heavenly Venerate was the one who reacted the fastest, stretched his hand and released a palm strike in the direction of the light. However, when the palm strike reached the light, it continued to sweep out without causing effect. Wu Haoyang. Upon seeing this scene, everyone pronounced this name in their hearts. Sure enough, the flash of light transformed into the appearance of Wu Haoyang. He stretched out his hand, and grabbed the pill bottle in the hand of that Heavenly Venerate. Gasp! This guy actually wanted to snatch the 7 deaths 7 explosions pill. Everyone was numb with shock. This guy was indeed too audacious. He even dared to seize something from the hands of a Heavenly Venerate. Moreover, this was the realm battlefield, and those who disobeyed the law would be killed immediately. It was just that this was too unexpected, and no one had been on guard. After Wu Haoyang flashed past that Heavenly Venerate in one move, he had already succeeded in 90%. When he once again swung his hand in a grabbing motion, the last 1 pill bottle fell into his hand. Still not satisfied, he then made a grab for Zhu Yang, intending to snatch another treasure pill. Humph! Ling Han made a move, and threw a punch out. I'll fight you again once I become a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate. Wu Haoyang let out a long roar, turned around, and left without any intention to fight. Stop running. That Heavenly Venerate became angry, and quickly followed to give chase. If Wu Haoyang succeeded in running away, the former would absolutely be put to shame. My alchemical pill. Qi Changjun also became furious, and chased after Wu Haoyang. It was just that Wu Haoyang's speed was obviously above theirs, or in other words, his physique was really too freakish, so as long as he was careful not to be hit by a Heavenly Venerate tool, he would be invincible here except when going against Ling Han. After a while, that Heavenly Venerate and Qi Changjun came back, and their faces were livid. This matter wouldn't end so easily. This time Wu Haoyang was indeed too outrageous, so that Heavenly Venerate immediately reported to the higher authorities, requesting for the cooperation of the Wu clan to capture Wu Haoyang and bring him here to face punishment. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.